continue to see such violence perpetrated against ICE officers. These are men and women who are out there, Amber, doing the job of enforcing the law. I always say if people have a problem with what the law is, then they shouldn't be taking it up with the ICE agents. They should be taking it up with Congress, and maybe they can get the law changed. But we saw, of course, last week there was a shooter at an ICE facility in Texas, and there was a handwritten note that this shooter left. So there was no ambiguity in terms of what this person's intention was. The handwritten note said, hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with AP armor-piercing rounds on that roof? Now, I assume this guy's goal was to attack ICE agents and I assume kill ICE agents. I don't know. These were very significant bullets he was using. But the victims of his attack were 3 detained migrants, one of whom is dead, the other 2 left in critical condition. It feels like that we have come to this place, Amber, where people are just kind of like, this is just an acceptable thing to some random person to go do, because the mainstream media and Democrats have consistently attacked ICE, their agents, the entire agency, and the deportations. We've seen 2 million of them thus far during President Trump's second term in office. And it seems like no one is willing to step out and say, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. But tragically, you know, now you have 1 migrant who's dead and 2 who are critically injured.
Yes, and polls show consistently that left-wing people are far more comfortable with justifying political violence than people on the right wing of the political spectrum. We have seen consistently massive protests at ICE facilities. Even after this attempted massacre of ICE agents, there were people outside of a separate facility blocking the transport vehicles for ICE officers. And we still see Democrats calling for unmasking ICE agents so that they can be doxxed, followed to their homes, and potentially attacked. And a group of Democrats are now fundraising off of this attack by blaming Trump because it was detainees who happened to be killed, completely leaving out the fact that the motivation from this individual was a targeted attack on the actual law enforcement officials, not the detainees. So there is a consistent justification and downplaying of an increasingly charged, violent atmosphere for people who are simply trying to do their jobs.
It's so tragic, Bethany. You know, the bullets were inscribed. Had something written on them that said anti-ICE. I mean, there no question what this guy's goal was. And apparently, the ICE sniper did multiple searches of Charlie Kirk's murder and the video of that before the shooting. So very clearly, he was inspired by that lunatic, that absolute monster who took Charlie Kirk's life, and I guess was trying to replicate it. You know, we see this sort of thing happen. You see the copycats come out, and I think a lot of us in the wake of Charlie's death said, I hope no one tries to do copycat, but here we are. This guy obviously did. And according to the FBI director, Kash Patel, he says that all the info they found so far indicates a high degree of pre-attack planning. So this wasn't just some spur-of-the-moment thing. This guy knew exactly what he was doing. He was setting up on a roof to kill ICE agents in the same style that Charlie Kirk was murdered. It's outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a response to the rhetoric that we're seeing. The number of times that I've seen and heard ICE agents called members of the Gestapo, it's all part of the framework in which Donald Trump is a Nazi, and anyone who works with him, even if it's, you know, a functionary part of their job and they worked the same job 5 years ago under Joseph Biden, they therefore become part of the problem, and they become legitimate targets in the minds of these psychotic people. But they are being driven on by members of the Democratic Party, you know, from the top on down, who portray our president as a fascist and, you know, follow the logic train. If the president is a fascist, then, you know, by any means necessary, do you stop him and his functionaries? When we saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that should have been a signal to Democrats to stop this kind of rhetoric. And it didn't stop them. They continued doing it almost instantly. And so this is an extension of what they've been saying for the past, 8 years now, since the first term.
Yeah, well, and you're right. They absolutely have. And it's so crazy to me that, to your point, Bethany, they've just continued. with this narrative. I think over the weekend I saw some very substantial Democrats saying that exact thing, calling people who are in the administration these horrific names like that. And you're right. If you are a true Nazi, if you are a true fascist, if you are truly Adolf Hitler, you're a horrible person. But that's the whole point, Amber, of all of that sort of characterization of people, is it obviously is meant to incite a certain physical response from people. Like, you hear that and you're like, oh, those people are terrible. Yeah, they're terrible. Yeah, racists are terrible. Yeah, Nazis are terrible. None of us are any of those things, though. And I think that it's such a dangerous space that we're existing in. I actually thought, I mean, erroneously, clearly, that in the wake of Charlie's assassination, that you would have at least one major Democrat, somebody who could maybe be the leader of this party, because we know they're totally rudderless. They have no idea who they are, who their leadership is, nothing, to come out and say, like, enough is enough. We got here and a man is dead because of the way we have characterized people with whom we disagree politically. But no one did that, Amber. Not a single one of them had the guts to come out and do that. And I still can't figure out why. If the shoe was on the other foot, I think that you would have many prominent Republicans coming out and saying, like, hey, we've got to tone it down. This is crazy. This can't happen. We can't just have people losing their lives because of this. But unfortunately, it seems like it's now just sort of normalized. And maybe people aren't even thinking twice about, acting out on it.
The left just wants to deny any responsibility or connection between the things that they've been saying and the psychotic reaction of their supporters. And really, it's been an escalation from the beginnings of woke culture back in 2010 and 2011, when they started labeling speech that they disagreed with as hate speech. There was this movement on college campuses to say that people who use speech that offended you or that you disagreed with actually could cause a physical reaction in the listener, to the point that they would be triggered, they could have PTSD, they had to have safe spaces and trigger warnings to protect themselves from that speech. And of course, if you paint speech itself as violent, as something that can cause a physical reaction, then you have created the permission structure for people to respond to that speech with actual physical violence and have it justified under the banner of self-defense. We've now escalated to a point where it's not just the speech that is offensive or possibly harmful, but the speaker themselves being labeled a fascist or a Nazi now means anything that they say is justified by a violent reaction.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.